Lord, as we come before you at this time, we are deliberating and making judgments about things that we need to do for the welfare of this county. Lord, we ask that you give us a clear mind, you give us wisdom, you give us the right to look into your word and give us in this world. We ask this in your Son's name, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Everybody take a minute to review the agenda for today.
Make a motion for the agenda.
I'll second it.
Must be a good one. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Recognition of the public.
Wait a
You can move on, I guess. No one's
We
here.
recognize you. Got significant interest in the
Everybody can take a look at the minutes real quick from last meeting. We had quite a few agenda topics in the subcommittee since then. But also just a reminder, we did vote on third Mondays as our official meeting time. So thanks everyone for being here. It seems like a good time, still a good time for everybody. I think it's 5:30 in the minutes, but we talked at the very end and said 5 was
5
okay.
o'clock, yeah.
I think Bob was.
I made the 5:30 recommendation, but then we thought, well, we might as well just keep it at 5, maybe right now would be the best time to keep it at 5 until we finally get to where we, don't have as much to talk about.
That's what trip is the one meeting.
The motion to
I'll make motion
approve
to
the
approve
minutes.
the minutes.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right. Minutes have been approved. I just want to kick us off here just with quick update and a couple of comments. So just a reminder for all the new people on the committee, the goal of this committee really is to implement all of the private acts and make sure that the county's policies and procedures and the way we're operating are in line with all of the statutes. So we're going to be going through a lot of different legalese, a lot of different things that I don't fully comprehend some of it, but we've obviously got our legal representation here. So he will help break down some of the stuff that we need to get accomplished to make sure we're in compliance with the private acts. And so if at any point any of this gets over anybody's head, please raise your hand, because I know it'll get over my head and I'll be asking a lot of questions in today's meeting. But did just want to reiterate, the goal here really is to push the ball forward on a lot of these initiatives like Kronos, these things that are really going to help us save the county money, the things that are get us more in compliance with the law, and I think just reduce the risk profile going forward with how the county runs. So. No official paper, but that's kind of my guidance for us in this meeting and kind of the next few meetings we're going to have. We'll be going through a lot of recommendations that will get voted on. So just a quick update then on some of the subcommittees. I do have some notes here. I think these will be shared, published at some point. These are just the minutes from the last meeting. But in the meeting we had, we did address a few of the topics we'll be discussing today. One is the purchasing and accounts payable policy and procedures. There are a few follow-ups to that were asked for some additional time to go back and review certain portions of it to make sure the language is what it needs to be. And then there was also some concerns on some timing of when this is implemented. So we won't be seeing that today, unfortunately, but we will be reviewing resolution for the county contracts to approve, I believe, the threshold of contract approval up to $1,000, but there is language that if there is, yes, Steve? Oh, 5,000, sorry. 5,000, but there is language in there if it's less than 5,000 to still seek legal counsel if you're confused or there's language that we don't approve. So we'll get to that in a little bit. We'll be looking at increasing the bid limits as well. Obviously, this is a balance of reducing the workload of the county employees while also balancing the risk of when do you need to have review on certain things. We didn't get to the project ledger accounting. That's tabled into the next one. And we did review the payroll holdback issue we talked about last month, but are going to table that at this point to discuss at our next subcommittee meeting. So 2 of the 5 we'll be looking at today. But if there are questions on any of other of these, I think we've got some legal updates on some of these as well. Please add it to the new business or please ask questions about it. So that was a 2-minute update on a 2-hour meeting. So if there's any other questions, please let me know.
So, I have a question. So, going forward, what are we looking for? Like, will there be more subcommittee meetings? Do they schedule another one?
There's not one scheduled currently. I think the idea was to get some follow-ups, and I think there was also some questions on when and how we can conduct the committee meetings going forward.
Yes. So we'll wait for the legal opinion on that before we go back to look at that.
I think that kind of final legal understanding of how to call them, what we should be doing there and who should be there, I think is what we're looking into at this point.
Yeah, I was just, if you would like me to go ahead and say this, that so much of this is gonna hit on me that I wasn't gonna give any kind of specific report. I was just gonna address items as we came to them. So you just let me know when you're ready to talk about them and we will.
Okay, do you want to talk about it?
Do you want to address the subcommittee issues?
I'm going to pass out the email under the legal opinion if you want to talk about it now.
Go there. Okay.
So in new business, you want to wait till new business or look at it now?
Okay. I'll wait.
We got a copy of the email that was sent to.
Okay. All right, we'll hold that question until new business. Any other questions about the subcommittee? I think some of it we'll address later on, but. All right. Mayor, any updates?
Well, I tell you, the only update I have is that I'm a bit dismayed that the county officials was not included in this discussion about this legal opinion. So I'm not prepared to discuss it tonight nor represent the county officials. I would like to seek an alternative legal opinion going forward. So that's the end of my report.
I don't understand. Could you?
That was pretty clear. I'm going to seek another opinion.
Are you going to hire outside?
I'm reviewing that right now.
Would that be something to see at budget?
I'm reviewing it right now.
What's the rule on hiring outside?
I'll be happy to update everybody once I've made a decision.
So I saw outside legal counsel myself today. I saw the comptroller's office for open records. You should be hearing from them later in the week.
And you're certainly within your rights to do that, just like I'm within my rights. And you didn't inform me of your attorney.
No.
So
mine's free.
I'll let you know when I'm ready with mine.
Well.
That's the end of my report, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mayor. Any updates, Mayor?
wait till we get to the legal opinion, if that's okay with the chairman.
Yep. Report of the trustee here. I wonder if you had an update for the committee here. Says there's some stuff included in the packet to review.
Oh, it's our monthly report, it's showing fund balance.
Any material changes to review?
I do appreciate you adding. Yeah, that's pretty strong in that first class.
Yes, the Pinnacle now, you know, we had to dig that out when we did. But when we first arrived, it was 30-something years, so that was, that was until just last.
This is helpful.
It was a close bid, but now, as you can look at the surplus, that they've actually looked on the rate that this one is.
Right.
Back and forth based on what's going on. To actually look at the two bank accounts, we had to estimate what we thought future rates were.
Bake that into the bid. Not just at one point in time, but it was future.
Okay. It was based on the Fed rate. Based on the Fed rate, and then we had to look at it, and then we also had to look at the costs that they were charging, each one of the costs, charging different costs. We spent quite a bit of time determining what we thought was the best, because I worked with the trustee quite a bit.
Yes.
The one that we determined at the end was Pinnacle, because there is some cost of actually switching banks at the time. But Pinnacle's cost is a little less than First Life, so we think it's probably pretty close right now.
They're pretty close.
Because of the cost factor right now.
And these that say Farmers Bank, the one that's the 10 million.
Those are,
CDs.
Yes, they do.
Rates keep changing so much, as closely to CDs, and most people are away from the bank account.
So are any of these bonds that we've got with the interest rates likely to come down? What's the yield premium on that? Anything is, we should be watching in our major bonds?
Oh, what we have on the bond is actually in the money market account, and what we do on any that are closed, we actually we retain an arbitrage consultant with them and do it full time. Right now, I believe the 2000, they looked at the 19, they're looking at the 2020 right now. When they looked at the 19, they thought we were fine, because you've got to do them at 5 years, and you have 6 months to pay back the arbitrage. And the 19 was done, the 20 we're working on the system time here. And we actually had it in the money market account. They're the ones right now, the 3.25 and the 3. They're actually more than the arbitrage right now, but for a significant amount of time, because it's not that less. So that's why we're having a calculation. What our debt policy says, if it's crystal clear, you know, the rate was more than the arbitrage the whole time for all our investments, then we won't do a calculation. If it's not 100% clear, then we'll actually do it.
Well, you sent out that investment guidance policy from the comptroller's office, which I thought was real helpful. One of the things that, looking at it, the government is calling some of these bonds, the high yield bonds, calling some of those bonds. So where we may be sitting pretty nice with some of these bonds, it's likely to go. The reason I know that, they called one of mine, so I did about that up there. They called one of mine. So I think you'll see the Federal Reserve's going to call some of these bonds.
These are CDs that we invest.
Okay.
We're not retaining bonds as the investments, right? We have bonds, we have another set of bonds that we've issued as a county that are subject to arbitrage rebates, and we have those all in these money markets.
Capital projects.
So basically, when the rates go up, we have to watch those, because we may, for instance, pick up $3 or $4 million in debt service, and if it's subject to arbitrage, we'll have to rebate that to the IRS to make sure we're all spending this. Right. We're watching that real closely. We've done one on the 15 bonds, the 19 bonds, the 13 wasn't even close. We never did one on the 13 bonds. The 20 bonds are right now we're sending data to the rebate specialist. We're estimating where we think we're going to be. The 19, a month ago, we thought we were fine. We said we were going to be the 20. Sorry about that.
No.
We have two different types of bonds.
All good? All right. moving on to report, Finance Director. David.
The first one is status report 3, and it starts on page number 6. And what I did was we took the memorandum and took the, for a better word, the body out of report, the prior report, report number 2. And what I actually did is, and if you go in there, we actually have the first of the goals, the reference from the act that we're trying to achieve, and the detailed actions where we're at, and the date that we think that we can have that achieved, and things keep progressing forward. The first, as you look, one of our concerns was the standard operating procedures. December 31st is when we plan to have all the SOPs back, except for, I believe it's payroll, they're going to be due back January 31st. We hope to have all those completed and reviewed by March 31st, 2024. And there's a lot of them, but we think we can achieve that goal. We're pretty well on target right now. The second one is cross-training on the Chronos and the Munis payroll, because both of those are new applications. The SOPs are being updated, and right now we hope by June 2024 to have all the soft training done on those applications for all our existing staff. That's kicking out if we have any turnover, we'll have to do some additional cross-training, but right now our turnover rate's slowed down significantly. Updating the purchasing policy, it was sent to the subcommittee. The subcommittee made some changes. I think they're down to a few items. Not moved forward at this point, hoping still maybe to get that to the county commission in March of 2024 or possibly April. That one's kind of questionable, maybe to plan it for this few months that continues on. The next one is the Munis bid module. We've contacted Munis. They told us the earliest they can start looking at the implementation of February 2024. We're hoping to actually configure that, have approval from the comptroller's office, and be able to take electronic bids by September 2024. A couple of things to tell you: we cannot do pure electronic bids by state statutes. State statute specifically says we cannot require minority-owned business or small businesses to do electronic bids. So what we're anticipating to be the private active is proficient. The manual bid, basically grade them all, and at that point scan the bids. We are planning to comply with all statutes, and it actually does require the approval of the state comptroller's office. But when we bid the Munis application, it's supposed to be capable of doing this per state statute, so then we have additional issues. The contract module, as you're saying, the draft policy moved forward from the subcommittee. We're hoping to have everything by September 2024. The way we anticipate, if you have a one-time purchase, going through just a regular AP or P card, will attach the one-time purchase contract to it. If it's a PO, one-time purchase to the PO. If it's a reoccurring, then there's actually a module in Munis that we're trying to implement completely. We'll actually provide a number for you if you want to go back and find that particular contract later. Right now, what we're doing is attaching to POs, the payment, and we're attaching some of them to a module.
So the original documents will be with the payment documents?
One of two places. If it's a one-time payment, we'll put it with the payment. If it's a one-time PO, with the PO, or a one-time P card. If you have one you're going to use all year long or for multiple purchases, like for cars 3 or 4 times, it will actually attach it into the module and give it a separate number.
So, from a legal perspective, do you understand what contracts are out there? You know you're not approving those? Will you know that we have contracts under 5,000 that are in our system?
It's my understanding that the contracts I approved get attached as part of their system, so that it's actually going to be easier now, because once you go to the proposed expenditure, these are going to be attachments to that.
Even those that you're not looking at and approving?
The ones that fall beneath the threshold, if this were to pass, yes, sir.
It gets still obtainable from us.
All right, so you really don't, you wouldn't have the database advice on those contracts. Although you're not approving, but they're housed in the data.
They can be looked at a later date, yes.
Okay.
If there's issues.
Will you, just at some point during the process, be spot checking some of these to make sure that we haven't agreed to something that we're not supposed to agree to?
I have not anticipated doing that, but I'll be more than explain this?
Well, think about it, I mean, I have seen large organizations do this, raise that threshold, and those contracts underneath, for example, if you have a contract that's $4,900, right? And then you have the same vendor, a month later, it's the same amount, and you keep stacking those contracts to below that 5,000, you as the lawyer don't know anything about that technically. But over time, that's going to bind the organization more money, county in this case. So I would just ask for you to think about that control, is that so at some point you have eyes on the process, or at least get some report that says, hey, we had X number of contracts below 5,000 approved, and so you've got some kind of document you're looking at. I'm not asking you to approve those other than to say, just understand, if you got 10 for, David Mawing for $4,000, you need to probably understand why. Because that might be a trend you might want to pay attention to. But I just ask you to think about that.
Yes, sir, and I will say, up till now, I have been getting some that fell below the 1,000 for the very reason somebody caught something that looked unusual, so there's been some good back and forth communication on that, but yes, that's not a problem.
And any other does require his approval, we do make them have a signature and email, that's what we want. If the current officers would continue for this to be $5,000. The contracts, and another reason we do need the contract is to comply with all the county principles for leases and software, which the cost of comes for better, basically where you lease software and hardware. The implementation of the self-service, if you look, portions of that's already done. Employees can now obtain W-2 checks, 1095, and they can make address changes. IT's been working with us, they feel it's secure. We've looked at it and used it as a large spread application. The final implementation we want to do after open enrollment this year to see what we can add in to make it easier for the employees on open enrollment. After we do that, then we'll have to set up the policies and procedures, and we're hoping to have that done in January 2025. If other projects go better, we'll be able to pull that back so that we've got multiple projects. And some of these seem like they're a long time, but several of these employees are working on multiple projects and their day-to-day operations. Migrate the highway department, that's one that was discussed at the subcommittee. It's not moved forward at this point. It did go to the subcommittee. They put on there, I believe, some language, and they may have go to language, but not exactly the language. But it was not a finite date, but it's still at the subcommittee. And then the other one is for the additional employee for the moving forward to the chronos and the purchasing has got the first reading in budget. It'll be up for a second reading. Based on where this is at, that's where we'll use the additional resources to work on one of these other modules or the chronos or the other items. So do you foresee, this may be a college question, do you foresee that issue comes back to the subcommittee, having made it as a subcommittee at the next meeting, or is that something that's going to be prolonged?
So where it stands right now, the next, I guess, follow-up would be for Toby and David to meet. I think we talked sometime before March 1st. Obviously, I can't expect them to meet this week before Christmas, but wanted to give them some time to discuss. So I think that's where the October 2024 came into question. Is they've got the March 1st date, then it's got to go back possibly to subcommittee, and then just the churn of meetings to get kind of back through all this is just going to take a minute.
That's the reason I was asking you October 24th, but not talk about it until March. Again, because that deadline out in jeopardy. Our first thing anyway was, if we could make the October, was actually to use the staff until such time to actually work on the chronos implementation, because it's quite a lift. But that's another item on down into the actual discussions. The next major item is the project ledger to kind of mirror what the 2012 Act says about having all items on there. And at the last commission meeting, there was quite a discussion about a project ledger or a management ledger. This would accomplish with the least amount of disruption to other offices or finance. Basically, it would give you a portal to scan your information. We do have it set up. It did not make it out because, and I think it was actually my recommendation to table this one because we were running up against budget. Didn't want to run over and actually stop the budget committee and the committee on time. next one's the reconfiguration of Telestaff and Chronos. This is Telestaff's actually an application that we weren't involved in the implementation, and we're really not involved with it other than it feeds data into the payroll system. And that's something that audit's gonna have to go to audit. We probably need to get a better understanding of how that system's feeding. We are working with Jay a lot, but Jay wasn't involved in the implementation either. He came in after the fact. It was, Sam Cook left. He was the primary person involved, and now, we have Annette and, which is the payroll manager, and Jay trying to work on it, but that's one we need to do some significant looking at, because us or EMS don't have to, as far as I'm concerned, the understanding that we'd like to have that, and I think they'll tell you the same thing. The next one, fully implementing the integrated Chronos system. If you look right here, the first whole group has been implemented other than direct download. I was talking to the payroll manager right now. The sheriff's department still drops an Excel sheet from Chronos and does the comparison before, Excel sheet before we upload it. And that's because there's a couple of things they're doing on the job injury, which they have to do quite a bit of adjustment. And they're actually verifying the sheet manually, because they actually don't have the process to the point where they can sign off quick enough. So I actually talked to Eric at the chief deputy for the sheriff's department, and I've talked to Annette, and we're hoping over the next several months to actually get a process where we can do a direct download with the sheriff's department. And then after that, if we can get the Telestaff issues, the EMS, and then when we hold back, that always could be direct downloads, which means we can take some of that time and actually spend it on as some of the motions have been made to do some of the pre-checks and stuff that I think a lot of the committee would like to see. The next one we are down to is the circuit court clerk. We contacted her on 9/23. We provided a demonstration on 12/11, and I think actually she's challenged in my interpretation of the understanding of the act. That's why I asked for a legal opinion versus my opinion at this point, because it's my understanding probably the most appropriate action would be to ask her internal counsel. And that's what my standard said. If you've got a challenge like that, you follow competent legal counsel. So I've actually asked for a legal opinion on that to make sure that my understanding when we were creating the act isn't different from what actually happened. The expert contacted the registered deeds on 12/4. We provided them a demonstration, which is kind of ad hoc. We didn't know there was going to be that many people on 12/11. She sent me an email on 12/12 saying that she didn't have enough time until January was early enough, but wanted to contact me in the future time about how to move forward. And then the other ones, we've been talking to the libraries quite a while. There's 5 libraries that have multiple different ways they pay under the policy, and they have some floating holidays, but we're hoping that those 2 aren't ready to move forward after the Christmas holiday to start working with the actual library and moving forward with those things. And we haven't contacted any of the remaining departments at this point. And then those last 2 modules are ones we think would be the lowest priority as far as things to implement on the news. The 2012 Act, or the actual news application. They have the least amount of risk of financial issue or savings of staff time. Does anybody have any questions about the order that we want to wait?
Maybe to Todd's minute here, but appreciate the update. Was there any, I guess, timelines that changed from the last time we talked, or is everything still kind of static?
Not really, because the thing was on the Nevis one was and the Chronos was to do them as we can go along. So right now we're probably looking at gauging in with the library and anybody else right now at this point. That's something that ultimately, if people aren't willing to move forward, that's something the committee or the commission will have to determine what actions they want to do as far as the contact. Okay. That's really kind of above me on that one as far as the committee. I just try to reach out to move forward.
I think we can probably move on. We need to revisit when Todd comes back. We can revisit for a minute.
Item B is the required composition of the investment committee. The legal has the same opinion I do. The actual statutes do not require those to be county commissioners. So if you're wanting to compose a investment committee, I think the most appropriate action would be to send your recommendations to committee on committees for them to look at it under the private act in general law.
That's a question. Is there, since
this committee is investment purchasing, is that like an ad hoc or subcommittee?
It says that investment on this, what it says in the private act is you guys will develop policy, but it doesn't say you're necessarily investment committee, so they came up last month. Do you want an investment committee that actually goes down and looks into the investments? So what I would say, if you go back and look under the general law, it actually talks about the county commission can appoint investment committee, so because it says you guys.
So it's just creating a new committee outside of
Yes, sir.
management.
So what I think you would actually be, the best way to handle it is, one, you guys would work up your policies, and then send a recommendation to committee on committees, legislators to form a committee. In the past, financial management has been the investment committee, but they never officially, because it said the same thing, they kind of develop policy, but doesn't say they. But the same thing, you could make yourselves a recommendation, and the county commission could appoint them as the same group. Or you may want to do them plus the trustee or whatever combination they want to do. But that is the end of my report, but it's not
If I may, so with the investment committee, do we need to send that on to committee on committees to work on now? Or do we need to?
I would say it would be the most prudent action if you guys have something in mind, and then who you're recommending for the investment committee. If it's yourself or yourself plus somebody else as part of you, or whatever combination makes sense. Because you're going to probably want an investment committee where it's going to actually work with the trustee to see if you can do some of the investments. You're very limited and they're very, but I think that would be, it's going to be a committee that's going to take some time. That makes sense. You may want to get members that want to meet during the day, or communicate by email, because email is working committee, making some decisions, kind of like out there. I think it's going to be a little more technical and time consuming if you're actually going to look at this. And the same thing if you look at the authorized investments on the next statute, the next under all business, you're very limited, and they kind of go around the world and say, let's invest. And the comptroller sent out an email, was it months ago, after the downgrade on the Fed, reminding everybody that you can't invest in several of those federal investments anymore because they're not AAA rated by, no longer AAA rated. And then you got limits based on fund balance, so I think that's kind of the thought process you guys would probably want to recommend to committee.
I just wonder if the thought process would be to have it as an ad hoc of this committee. I understand the specificity of needing to dig in and things like that, but I'm wondering, like, if it's a separate standalone committee as a commission, it's going to report directly. I don't know, but saying about what financial management has done historically is something that would come back here, and then we would forward it on to legislative and committee of committees.
Historically, they've just went into the investment committee, and its action was actually to, it's basically the trustee of the board.
And I think for so long, you weren't generating any interest anyway, so it didn't really matter. I understand that part of it. I just wondered, like.
And we had an ad hoc, I think, maybe before you were even the chairman of the commission, I can't remember. We had an ad hoc one time with $30 million of hospital funds. But the thing was, if you look at it, it has to be a sale and a special circumstance, and we were wanting to argue the special circumstance that ties the funds, and the state said it didn't meet that requirement. And I thought they probably would, but they told us no. They killed it.
I don't want to speak for Mr. Hyde or put words in his mouth, but an understanding committee might not be exactly what he was looking for. If we could accomplish the same thing.
Like I say right now, just like we're saying, if you look at the one for some of those longer term investments, it says, I think, it has to be basically sales of something unusual. Well, they didn't even consider the hospital sale unusual. They have to tie those funds up in long term investments. So that's what we're going to run into. And there's a rule about the balance of your lowest idle fund. Well, we have a DA fund that has $60,000, $70,000 in it. It's a percent of that. So we're talking long term investments are very limited. So what the trustees done probably, and then the same thing. When I first got here, there was some T-bills, and they were allowed, but actually, they T-bills. They were actually held in finance, which I had a question about that. But the T-bills, because rates had changed, were actually paying less than the trustee CD. So those kind of flipped back.
I appreciate what Mr. Langford's pointing out. I can see the subcommittee of this committee. Would we need to send it anywhere else if we wanted to create a subcommittee?
It says you want to create policies.
That's,
Policies argumentative, what do you really do, or do you want to create a fully official
understand
investment committee? So what you may want to do is send it
it's
to
functionally better, but legally required.
well,
to go
you
in a
could
different
send it
direction.
to committee on committee saying that you want the financial management committee to be. And then really it's the one to officially look at the investments, because if you go into that statute, you can hold your arm once for investments. But if you go back to the 12 Act, it says you'll create policy, it's not really clear. You could argue the policies are the investment, but I don't know if you want to go that direction.
It seems with that, I'm sorry, Ms. Fleming,
No.
it seems like we could just request legislative to make financial management the investment committee, and then if we needed to appoint a subcommittee to study, to do the daytime work and things like that. You know, we could certainly do everything that I think we're trying to do. I just,
That's going to make you the same committee, and then that's the trustee if she's got investments to send it.
because I would think legally too, creating another standing committee after the rules of the commission have already been approved is,
Unless you're going to create another night for the
I mean,
commission.
it's going to add another 30, 45 minutes to a commission meeting.
On top of that, you're going to add another committee, and their nights are already packed. There's going to be another. But this one could probably do the same thing to make it
I'm all for this committee doing it. It's just a matter of if we're sending it to committee on committee or legislative.
I've got the actual section of the bill, actually, what it says.
However, I agree. However we make it happen, we don't create another group.
And I'll tell you exactly what it says in the 12 Act related to this. It says the 2012 Finance Committee shall recommend policies and procedures for cash management and investments of our funds as prescribed by law. Such recommendations shall be approved by majority vote of the county legislative body. You could argue you're already, but it doesn't go into all the details of the statute about whole new formulas for investments. And then it's kind of an error question too. And we've actually got the investment statute in there too. I think it's a bit in the map that would take the investment policy part and all the
I think it seems to me, like Mr. Sidler can certainly weigh in better, more effectively. I mean, I would say if legislative approved us to be the investment committee, then we could manage internally, whether that's the subcommittee or what to do, instead of having to go through committee on committee. So, because if you do that, you're talking a 2 or 3 month turnaround before you can actually do any of the work.
What the main statute says, for the purpose of carrying out designate the types of investments, the amounts of those investments, and maturity. See, the other talks about policy, this one actually talks about investing. So I think what you're saying, you get the actual county commission to appoint a committee, and then they can do a work session and bring it back to the main one to approve, which is fine. As long as the actual approval comes from the county commission.
Yeah, it just seems to be in terms of purpose, financial management's purpose is to manage the finances if you can, which would include investments.
I would think that probably definitely if you're going to be able to choose investments going to fall, because Section B says no liability shall attach to any member of the committee selected for the purpose mentioned in subsection A, except for malfeasance or or the performance of duty. So basically, if you guys make an investment and loses money, you're not responsible for all the law. So I think you definitely want to enact it under that statute to protect yourselves.
I'll make that motion.
Okay. So motion to send this
I'll
to,
make a motion to request legislative to appoint financial management as the investment committee.
Committee on committee.
Or committee on committees, I'm sorry.
any more discussion? All right, all in favor? Any opposed? What's that?
My second.
I think the mayor.
Oh, he
Yeah.
did, okay.
Yeah. All right, our name might get a little longer next meeting, so. Did anybody want to review authorized investments? I think we covered that with the last discussion. If you want a little light bathroom reading, it's there for you. Jumping Jumping into new business, we did have legal opinion from Erica. Jump to that.
And it was actually forwarded to everybody this morning. It was the two items that I was questioning on, and then make sure I had a correct understanding, and then there was some concern about a selection of the, I guess, the fifth member of the subcommittee.
My response was actually emailed to you all as well.
Some of these questions about number 4 came, I had a question about the function of the subcommittee versus the actual committee to make sure that there is an understanding which one functions which way. And as I said, I have had questions about the actual board that appoints the fifth member, so the first ones were based on, to make sure I had a correct understanding, which is item 1 and 2. Then item 3, 4, and the question comes from things that I've been inquired on to make sure I have a correct understanding. So I sent that on to legal to get a legal opinion. My understanding is when you have a legal concern, you send it to the law director for the county versus me trying to answer the legal question. Something that are approved could come back to the, if the subcommittee doesn't approve it, can it come back directly to the committee? I think that was actually a question from Michelle. That's one of the suggestions.
Okay.
I think you're fine, Michelle, that was your question. That's fine.
So just come back to the committee, like any other subcommittee report, with the recommendation to approve, reject.
But my question was to make sure that I understood the full function, that they actually do that. Most of the time, your committee can go back and give a directive to the subcommittee, that's a question. Not 100%, without me asking. I was asked that, if they wanted to go ahead and bring something back to it. I had questions about the change of the last member of the subcommittee, I have a couple of questions on that. Or is, what they do all ask.
At the end of the day, all I want to do is make sure that we fully implement the 2012. So, as far as all these different issues, I don't understand anything that pushes back and we go the other direction. We've implemented some of it. Thank y'all for getting us to this point. We just need to get over the finish line, and I don't understand any of the items that push us back in the other direction. I just want to say, my goal is to go forward. And maybe in this decade.
run into roadblocks, that's something really the committee's gonna have to deal with in the legislature. And there's ways to deal with that, but that's really up to you guys.
Feel free not to answer this, David, but were there anything from the subcommittee meeting that puts a roadblock or jeopardizes the timeline you put in front of us?
That was all we keep moving forward.
Okay.
I think if we don't move forward, and that's what I said, I'll make a recommendation to move the policies forward. So the committee was recommending, so that's what my motion was. Here's the committee's ready to move, so I'm trying to do what the committee wants to do. Ready to move forward, I'll try my best to move forward. But if we run into roadblocks, that's something the committee and the legislators are going to have to know what's going on. I don't know if Dr. Lane put this here on me earlier about the 12 Act and the 81, but all this stuff is kind of small. We only have so many options. Dr. Lane, I keep forgetting Dr. Lane for that. He did a lot of work for that. I keep calling Mr. Lane.
I'm trying to.
I've been called way worse, David. You call Scott.
Well, you worked a lot for it, so.
I'm trying to do the math in my head and see who might have been here back in '81.
Well, it was before my time, and I can just say there's been a lot of changes, the 81 to the 2002 to the 81 to the 2012. There's been a lot of changes over time.
Well, massive upgrades in technology and processes, and we've been through multiple financial crises. We've
This
seen
is a modernization.
people take advantage of counting. I mean, there's so much has changed since then.
Yeah, and I think one of those, to be fair to David, is that we did not have the IT infrastructure to support on the county side what was required by 2012 Act. It was probably, David was finance and IT, but without any IT training, so I think that's
I hired folks out. The problem we had was, it took so much time that I couldn't do both jobs. And we had 2 employees, so that's why one of the reasons we need an IT department. And we now have an IT department, we have the technology. This act in all reality is just a modernization. It's basically modernizing things as much as possible with a consolidation like most counties, it's the highway and the county general office schools. Because there's, I think, 30% have the schools in and the other 60 doesn't. So the college and least will have most everybody in houses. So it brings you to the lowest level of consolidation would be high level technology, if you follow that. I know it says 2012, but it was written in such terms that it didn't date. It said the most feasible, most technologically possible. That's why I didn't get into the terms of like what development of that. And there was a whole subcommittee created that actually involved at the time the county, the school board, the director of schools, the county manager, the whole bunch of people involved in this matter. That's not necessary. No, you guys weren't here, but there was a whole bunch of school board, everybody was involved in this particular act before it was
Thank you, David. As far as the legal opinion, is there anything we need to do to just get more clarity around the financial management subcommittee, how it should be structured? Do we need to send that on for further review, or? So I think there's some confusion of exactly what the subcommittee should be doing, who should be on it, how it should be formed. Do we need to get further clarification from committee on committees? Or?
I think the biggest question I've got was on the 5th member of the subcommittee. That's why I sent down the question, are they subject to open records? Well, when you start looking at the private act, they're not always subject to open records. The definition of them says constitutional statutory officers. Well, there's all the constitutionally elected, which would include the 24 commissioners, the mayor, and the whole large group. So it's not really constituted before the meeting.
what does the charter say? What is it?
It says constitutionally, what's the word? Actually,
Statutory or constitutionally.
It says I am statutorily and constitutionally trained officers, and they're making policy. So I had some questions because there was a change in member. Are they subject to open meetings? And my understanding right now is they are. And I think probably you, I think you said you contacted the state, did they have a different opinion, or?
No, they said it needs to be open and noticed and open.
So they have the same opinion as their law director on this? Because I've had some questions about the change in the,
When you say change, is it an additional number, or is it?
we had a fifth member, and I handed out to Ms. Williams last Friday, she's the president. We ended up with a different member by the meeting and notice, and then I was told about it that day when I was informed on a request to go to a meeting about 5 o'clock on Friday, which I had some concerns about the composition of the actual committee, because it involved both members of the subcommittee and this committee. So I actually waived legal in, and involved legal out to make sure we tried to stay under the parameters that we were following in that particular meeting. Because one thing is, finance is one thing, you're trying to follow the law and rules, so I don't want to get involved in meetings that are not following statute.
And you run the risk of stuff getting invalidated after you run it through the entire course. It's the old legal analogy, the fruit from the poisonous tree, whatever your intent, go ahead. And that's kind of the position I was taking when I was reviewing this after I was asked the question, was we got to make sure this subcommittee is properly governed to get their member on here, because if something goes south here, then everything else goes south.
Yeah, that's how prospective looking at it, right? I mean, because if you have a member on the committee that you challenge, right, legally, person.
They challenged me, I understand.
Well, yeah, but if votes were taken and they were approved or unapproved, you're saying retrospectively go back and challenge them.
They could be invalidated, whatever decisions were arrived from that point forward. I think I'm answering the question.
Yes, you.
Okay.
I'm just trying to.
And I'm sorry to be so quiet. I hate reading to people, so if I will answer any questions you have, I just don't want to.
This topic, it doesn't feel like it's appropriate for us. Can we make a motion and send it to committee on committees for them to figure out this issue with the membership? Just like it's more their arena than ours.
Well, I don't think the body of it can change, because it does say that it will be, this fifth member will be chosen annually by the Sumner County Officials Association or by a majority vote of any subsequent organization that statutorily and constitutionally elected officials create. Now, we're not going to get around that. That's how that person gets appointed. But then every question leads to another question. Well, they said constitutionally and statutorily elected officials. All of a sudden that brings in commissioners. Are we opening this up for commissioners too? And then you get the black letter versus intent. So if this isn't reined in and fixed now, it's going to create some problems.
I think to Terry's question is, how do we fix it?
Is it our committee to fix it, or it feels like?
If Committee on Committees is responsible, as I believe it is, for ensuring that the committees are run properly, then that would be my first guess. In the alternative, my is legislative.
Well, if we're in doubt, we could send it to legislative. I mean, they could kick it to committee on committee.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't feel like it's ours. It's in our realm of responsibility to determine that.
Normally, you would not be reviewing the process of how this is done. You would just expect it to be done correctly.
Exactly. Yes.
It's probably beyond the purview of this committee based on what you just said, but it seems to me the question is, if the elected officials are going to appoint, then they would, the problem with it was they didn't properly notice a meeting and hold it publicly.
I can't even find what association exists that does this, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, so I thought there were meetings of constitutionally elected leaders like Toby and
there may be. I could not find one, so I've never seen. I couldn't find one noticed before.
Yeah, I'm not saying that there is.
And if it exists, that's fine. It just needs to.
But it would have to be properly
jump
noticed.
through the hoops, yeah.
I was just thinking that'd be the fastest way in terms of being able to work on some of the policy things that we've talked about. Is if that's the case, if that meeting is properly noticed and then they elect somebody, then it meets the standards of the 2012 Act. It keeps us out of the legislative full commission. That would push any work on the subcommittee off to February or March, probably at the earliest.
Was it properly noticed? I couldn't find anything.
Well, then that takes that kind of off the table if it wasn't publicly noticed.
So it'd have to be publicly noticed going forward.
Whatever the entity is, that was the other problem I had, unless the mayor's aware of one, I'm not. I don't know what that entity is or is called.
It's just a group of county officials that have been meeting since well before I took office in 2002. They have always met on occasion. We used to have dues, and we would do a county dinner for the officials. We stopped that years ago. We set the calendar, or not the calendar, but the days off for the employees. Done that forever. And then we've always talked about what we would include in our budget for raises. We've done that every year. It's not that that's what happens. It's just as a collective group, we work together to present one budget as it relates to raises. Other than that, we do not set any policy. We don't set anything that would go before this body. I mean, the raises that we agree to is only what we submit on our budget. They hold no weight or value whatsoever, as evidenced by this commission. So I don't see where we're just a group that gets together and talks. And that's the way we've operated since at least I've been on board in 2004, and I know they were enacted way before then. And there's never been a bylaw set up, never been a charter set up. We've stopped taking dues for a while because we just, we would expend them on flowers or something like that. We just haven't done anything like that. So that's basically what the Sumner County Officials Association is. It's constitutional officers and judges that get together and we just talk. So no laws are made.
Here's the problem, if I may interject, is that any member of any public body which consists of two or more members with the authority to make decisions for or recommendations to a public body on policy or administration. Here, that may be fine to operate under that guise, but once it came to the appointment of someone to this committee that's going to be making policy recommendations, that changes the complete scope of this. That's my interpretation of the law. So I'll leave it at that. The mayor said something about getting independent counsel, but I think that's going to be the linchpin.
Those meetings, Mayor, that you're talking about, do you have minutes and agendas and all that you articulated?
No, we're really very loosely formed. It's very informal. There is no agenda. There is no minutes. There's never been an agenda or minutes.
You guys require a quorum?
Nope. Whoever can make it, can make it.
You're not really making any policy decisions or any monetary decisions.
So is this the first political appointment, appointment you guys have made to that committee, put on like a subcommittee?
Well, I think they've always done this. Yeah.
But if I may, didn't the subcommittee end with you saying you're going to take the purchasing policies back to that group to decide what to do? I mean, that's how.
Sorry, what now?
I thought that's how the subcommittee ended last week.
It was a question on the, back pay, it wasn't other than for the week holdback.
Payroll
Holdback. So you're going to take that policy issue back to that group to discuss before you could make a recommendation on the.
He didn't say he would take it back to that group. He just said other county officials.
Other
Not
counties.
discuss with other county officials. And because I want feedback from other officials, and I'll phone them or stop by their office and talk to them about it, get their opinion on it.
So not that group, per se.
Now, we haven't had time to set another meeting. Our daily activities are pretty hectic.
So today, just so I understand, today there's that fifth person's not articulated in the charter. I don't think they were chosen by quorum, that's my question. Did you guys have a quorum to choose that fifth member? Or it was sent down to the subcommittee this last meeting?
It was just a consensus of the group that was there.
Was a quorum there?
We don't have a formal body to determine a quorum. Everybody that was there decided.
Yeah, I think that's the question, is the fifth person on the subcommittee,
Yeah, period.
what's the legal?
Was that supposed to be you by charter?
There is no charter.
No, there's not a charter.
But there's a subcommittee, either policy that articulates the membership of this.
It's an association.
Okay, I'm talking about the policy, the subcommittee below this committee.
That's
the policy.
the guidance, yes.
Yes, so I'm asking, not on that committee you're talking about, I'm talking about the subcommittee for this committee. There is a document that articulates who's supposed to be on that committee. What is
The 2012 Act.
The 2012 Act in Section 2 articulates that and says, under item E, one elected county official chosen annually by the Sumner County Official Association or by majority vote or constitutionally elected officials create.
Now, were you scheduled to be on that? Are you technically part of that subcommittee?
I was, but because I was the chairman of the County Officials Association, but it's time for me to turn it over to somebody else.
Okay, I'm just trying to
Yeah,
understand the process. Yeah, okay.
So we had discussed that when we had our little informal meeting, and I was having a hard time getting papers.
Yeah.
So they talked about maybe appointing someone else to be on the subcommittee. The chairmanship.
Just trying to understand how we got here.
Right.
But more than anything, so.
I mean, that seems pretty clear that it has to come out of that organization.
I hate to keep throwing wrenches in this, but that does bring up the question of, are commissioners included in this? I would assume that's not the intent based on my reading, but it doesn't say that. It's just elected officials other than.
I think that group, I mean, I can remember talking to Mr. Hinton about them meeting about pay raises with this group in the early 90s, so I think it extends back. Mr. Hyde could probably speak to this. Like, I know it goes back beyond 2002. I think it goes back to at least the 90s and probably before.
It's always been the elected officials in this building.
My only point is there needs to be some clarification by the committee on that, unless you want to hit this later on down the road. I just figure if we're going to be cleaning stuff up, let's get it all cleaned up now.
The question I had was about the notice, but I had questions about how the member was chosen and the notice of the meeting.
I still think whatever that committee is has to abide by the Open Meetings Act.
Any questions? Raise money about that.
So I'll throw a motion out there. I move that we ask the elected officials group to do a publicly called meeting and formally elect someone to be the fifth member of the policy subcommittee.
Now, would you include all elected officials, or just?
I think I would suggest we do the historic group, which has been the constitutional elected and the judges. But I think it's been that way for 40 years at least. I think that was the intent of the 2012 Act.
Yeah, I think that was the intent, but the verbiage, as I say, didn't make it that way because the county commissioners are constitutionally elected. So I don't think that was the intent. I think the intent was this committee here, but nobody.
It says that.
I think your language fixes one problem. We've still got
Yeah.
think that would have ever included.
Right.
And I think subsequent elected body would be, if that had dissolved formally and been created into something else, then it would automatically become that. So I mean, I don't think commissioners have ever been included in anything called Sumner County Officials Association.
I would like to throw it back to, if we're looking at this and we're interpreting this, I don't think, here we have representation of 2 commissioners. I'd like to get more of the commissioners before we carve them out of something that they might be involved in deciding on. I'd like to throw it back, and if that means putting it on old business until we can get more input from the commission, or we can get this in front of more people.
My only question I was asked that I passed on initially was the open records that was required to be in public notice.
Well, and
I think that's clear.
yeah, and I think to go to Mr. Zimmerman's point, like, my motion solves one problem, creates another, but I think the other side is, if you don't go that way, then it solves one problem and creates another, because if it's clear in the statute that it's the Sumner County Officials Association, I don't really, I think it's what I'm where you were a minute ago, is what does it take to clear this up, and I don't know. I think we're probably headed, we could potentially be headed to court, and my question is the policy subcommittee going to rule on anything controversial enough to warrant legal challenges to anything?
And it's very obvious that when this was acted written in 2012, they knew exactly who the Sumner County Official Association was. There was no secret group.
I would say the intent was the elected officials association.
Now,
But if they be it better or not was never discussed when the act was written. That's why when the question was posed to me, I posed it on her. Is it required to be in the open records? But the real question comes back to the open records, which I think right now, if they make the open records, they make the intent.
and we have, I'm not going to speak for all the officials, but I have no problem setting a meeting where all of y'all can come. Everybody can come, and we'll vote on putting the person on this board. We'll have minutes, we'll write it all down nice and pretty. We'll pass it with a quorum, and then have this person. But to imply that the Sumner County Official Association is anything other than what it is and has operated since probably before the 90s. I don't know who would be the authority on that, but I know it's been operating under this same model since way before I took office.
Is there any kind of legal or binding document that talks about the organization? I mean, this just sounds very nebulous to me.
It was very nebulous in the act as well. And I just want to be very clear, there were no nefarious allegations being made here. Our problem was.
There absolutely is.
No, there most certainly isn't. And one of the points I was trying to make in this was that the authority to make decisions or recommendations to a public body on policy or administration, the last thing I want to be doing is cleaning up messes because it got killed at the inception. And that's the only hurdle that I think needs to be gotten around here. And if we can do the public notice as far as especially for the appointment of this subcommittee, then we'll be fine.
So what would have been a better plan, let's just go ahead and rip the Band-Aid off. What would have been a better plan is to reach out to the county officials and say, hey guys, I think we might have a little problem here. We might have a public policy problem. We think that this might be an issue. Can we talk about it?
Because I didn't
We
get
want to
this
run it
till
through several
Friday.
different committees, and we include on this committee, which again, this is a problem for me. If you're going to include one, include all. We want to be transparent. We're the most transparent commission ever. But we include this committee, and then we add Jeremy Mansfield. Well, if we add Jeremy Mansfield, let's add everybody.
He's over committee on committees.
Yeah, that's always.
And legislative.
Legislative committee.
We include everybody again. If we're going to include anybody outside of this committee, I say we include everybody.
Well,
And we doggone should include the county officials. When you're making an accusation that they're breaking TCA 8-41-101, Section 8.
But ultimately, the decisions made or the votes made at the subcommittee have to come to this committee for approval, right?
Yeah, that subcommittee would be suggestive in nature.
Right, but this committee would still make the final decision on any vote that came up. So, to me, that is the safety net, I think, to this committee, is that this committee gets to see it, right? I mean,
This committee, yes, pardon me.
no, but I guess I'm just, if, let's just say that you didn't make a decision in the subcommittee that was not advantageous to the county, and we said, well, I don't think we would go there. This committee would have the ability to pull that back, or to say no, go back and try again. So it's not like that subcommittee, that moves, and then it's now policy or law. This committee still gets to make that decision, push it to the commission to do that.
I think everybody, David's even alluded to it, what it was set up for, what the mayor has talked about is, and you've even mentioned going back and having the minutes and doing everything the legal way, and going ahead and just have an official meeting and take the minutes and do everything that is the correct way, and go ahead and vote and have a real meeting.
So could we kind of rewind it a little bit?
Right.
Maybe do exactly what you said.
Yeah, I think-
You said that was put that.
I think
back on the
I'm just
agenda.
gonna I'll withdraw my motion, because I don't think I think, hear what Ms. Boyd said, hear what everybody else said, I think it's just premature for that motion, so I'll withdraw that.
So, I mean, would it make sense for John, you to do what you said, is to get the organization around it, get the minutes, get the public notice, just to clean it up, go back, although it might be laborious a little bit, is to go back, put those issues back on the agenda, give public notice, go in, decide as a subcommittee what you want to do, and move forward. And that's a little bit
Like
of
the official section.
Right, but I mean, in terms of what you guys decided, that to be unwound, if you have to get challenged, you could fix that by doing public notice, going back, revisiting some of those issues again. As it sounds duplicative, have the vote again, and get it on record, move forward, and you guys clean up how this fifth member looks like. That's how I'd like to recommend it.
I think that's fine, because that's really doing what it was set up to do in the first place. And
That
it's just
kind
been,
of unwinds it.
it's been done a certain way for years, and it's just continued, so.
And if I could add to that, if we could have a clear definition of what the Sumner County Officials Association is,
I'd be more than happy to put that.
that would probably help everyone.
I'd be more than happy. So it seems to have been understood in years past, but I'm more than happy to articulate that.
So,
I'll make a formal recommendation, a motion to do that, in terms of not just that, but I'm talking about going back, get the meeting reestablished, with public notice. John, if you'd like, put what that committee does and the members and how you select and move your members around, and then this committee can consider that. Like, if the subcommittee goes and does the vote, like you guys did once before, then we can kind of just back up and redo it, and legally we're good on that, but I do think we have to get clarity on how this fifth member is selected, and understand, is that, from a clarity perspective, this committee, are we okay with that? And then, not only that, do we need to push it to a legislative or another body within the elected commission to make this decision? But as a committee member, I would like to get it right first, and then we'll figure out the member thing, how you got there. But I want to make sure we can retract those votes and redo it.
I would just like to throw out there, for whatever it's worth to the mayor, if this is gonna be done the way you just outlined, just so that we cover all of our bases, just create a composite of the group, just do where else you want to get it, just as if it were the first meeting of a committee, get all that in play, do your vote. I think and it's publicly noticed, I think you're right as rain.
I just think, Mr. Carter, I think that's kind of where you're going, is where I started with my motion, but I'm wondering if it's just premature for us to do that. I think we just want them, we don't have the
Authority to make a motion to force them to do anything.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if we let them make the and then we have to see if if it meets legal and everything else, but, you know, I mean, I think, like, I just want to reiterate, we have great constitutionally elected officials. I'd rather just let them sort it out, figure it out, and then we can, you know, we can come back and look at it on the back end if we need to, if there's a problem.
So just, Dr. Martin, look and make sure, what are you recommending exactly?
I think we're recommending saying that. I just withdrew my motion because I heard that, like, Ms. Boyd raised, and I don't know where your message jump in, but, you know, I said, I made the motion and she asked about, does that include county commissioners? And I was like, I don't think so because of the way the statute was written. And then we discussed that. And then in the midst of that conversation, I'm thinking like, it's just premature. We have this body. It's existed for 40, 50 years probably. Let's just get it done in ways that meet public records requests and things like that. And then we have our fifth person. So I'm just wondering, so that's why I withdrew my motion, because I think I think you and I are in the same place.
Be the quickest way, anyway.
Yeah, I agree. Otherwise, we're looking at months.
And I want to kind of unplay the legal concerns that you got. That's why those. And we did have some pretty heavy things we're trying to work through, payroll issues. Make sure we're on good legal footing to do that.
Any more discussions?
Well,
Good.
I pointed to Commissioner Brown.
well, the thing that, you know, the mayor brought up, it just sounds like this association was kind of like a breakfast club or a supper club or something like that. It didn't sound, you know, no meeting, no charter, no quorum, nothing, you know, no publication of the meeting time, that kind of stuff. And it just sounded like more of a supper club kind of thing than an actual official meeting. And I'm not saying that, you know, but that's why I would definitely like to get something in writing and publicly noticed and that kind of thing, because we just don't need to be playing around with something that is off in left field rather than that. It's mentioned here, but we need to get it legally binding.
Commissioner Brown, I think we just decided to do that.
Yeah, well, I'm just,
Okay, I'm just making you understand what we just decided to do.
All right. One last discussion there from Phil.
So, I hear Commissioner Brown, and I feel the same way. I'd like to get some more form around what this association is. It feels like that responsibility for putting that around what is this association is legislative.
Okay.
And if they could give us the definition of what this is, I think that's where it is. Because they are our legislative body, and they should be the one that's defining these pieces for us. And if we could ask them to define that and the members for us and how that works, that would be what I would ask them.
So send this question to the legislative committee.
Yes, what is this association and how does it work in
Okay.
this subcommittee?
Okay.
And I'd like them to address that and answer that. And then put it in front of the full commission and decide. I understand it takes us down the road, but we're clear.
That's fine.
Are you talking about the Elected
So-
Officials Association?
Somebody's got to define it.
I don't disagree with that, but I don't know the legislative is gonna have the purview to do that. That's for them to decide.
It's in there. So what if I think I'm
I
I
understand that it's
think I'm
in
an
the statute.
official.
As
So-
long as they create and present this entity, then they can appoint the member. I'm not sure how much clarification the commission's gonna be able to give.
Well, what if I think I'm an official? Because I am.
That's a subsequent, though, that is the other disappears.
Oh.
If I say it names the association, I'll let this one disappear. If this one exists.
Then we go with
Then
it.
I think the intent's followed and it comes back into play.
Right.
And it's just, I didn't get notice to go to supper club. Okay. Thank
So
you.
you're calling the motion back?
Yes.
All right. I think we beat this to death. We can move on. Thank you for your help on this, Mr. Mayor.
And let me just be clear, I asked for a legal opinion because when I'm challenged, I'm supposed to get competent legal opinions, not. So mine would get the legal opinion and just bring you the information. I wasn't trying to exclude or trying to create an issue. Please be informed. And this is the actual committee that it brought to. We'll go to the
committee, this committee makes the decision for the
Move on to a couple of new business topics. I'd say, given what we've just discussed, Eric, are you comfortable with us voting on some of these things that came out of the subcommittee, or should we table these?
I don't know if we can conflict with that came out of subcommittee to you.
Can I ask a question? If that body's only advisory anyway, to go back to Mr. Kerr's point earlier, I mean, we're the final.
That's what I'm assuming, that we can just supersede even if
It seems
something.
to me like if we're good with it, then that's the final.
I understand that, but my only problem, and again, I'm paid to think glass half empty here, is it a good idea comes out of sub, they pick it up, they run with it, and then somebody's going, well, this is all void because sub was,
Except they don't have voting authority. Would be
Who?
The subcommittee can't make it, only this committee can send it to the full commission.
I understand that, but for subcommittee, the idea would never been there to be voted on.
No, I think it went from here to the subcommittee, the recommendation to look at the bidding policy. It started here and went to the subcommittee. Because Mr. Long.
Maybe we're talking about two different things.
I believe these two items got, so this may end the whole issue. I believe these two items got 5 votes, so even if we invalidate a vote, there's still 4.
Okay.
So I think
We're really just looking at what's in statute anyway.
Let me just say, well, that's the reason I see in asking for legal opinion, because there's a few things not clear, like the interaction with the subcommittee, and then I try to get questions answered. It wasn't to exclude elected officials or anything else, it was to get a specific answer to a question I had, which I'm not supposed to repeat, were about open records and specific other questions, and one of them came up was the composition of the committee because of substance. Well, no, let me just be clear, I'm not trying to stir stuff. It's just right here to get these answers. If the subcommittee doesn't approve, can the committee override it? I think probably yes, but that was why I asked for legal opinion. It's still, that's why what we're discussing right now. So I think 100% that the committee can just override whatever the subcommittee does. But the question is, if they have to send it here, can you just correctly take it? I think you can correctly create them, but I'm not an attorney. That's why I don't want to give that.
Yeah, I just think subcommittees have no binding power over the commission.
By definition, right? But the private act doesn't say that. That's why I'm kind of getting down there.
Yeah.
The subcommittee usually can be given directives from the committee about, and pull it up now.
Money for a month.
Well, I think it got 4 votes. That's my
6:30. If it got 4 votes.
If I was mistaken, you can ask the other committee. As a member, I voted for the other committee members here too.
I think topics B and C were both 5 and 5. That supported
And
it.
then we got the other 2 members there, and they're all 4 and 5 members here. Nobody said it wasn't.
I would be comfortable moving forward with these two, I think it's a well laid out.
And it would even without that one member still pass it.
I'll make a motion to group and approve B and C.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you.
So on the 25,000, you guys want to go ahead and send that on to commission or wait before purchasing policy comes out and folded in the full commission? That's the one on the 25,000.
Send it on.
West for increase.
I'm good with
I
that.
mean, it's in state law.
So there was the other question, make sure it says that you get 25,000 and anything by the bare minimum 40% has to have 3 quotes, from 10 to 25. So you want to go with that bare minimum in the statute too?
We went to this several years ago on the school side, and with inflation and everything, it's helped tremendously.
Well, no, what I'm trying to say, over, it says on there, if you look, we can go to 25,000. And it says anything from 40% of that through the amount, which would be 10 to 25, you have to get 3 quotes, but you guys can even set a lower limit. So you probably need to vote on your recommendation from that lower limit up, which the subcommittee we said from 10,000 to 25 is 3 quotes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everybody fine with that?
Do we need a vote on that piece of it?
If it's not, if he says it's part of your motion.
It's part of my original motion.
All right.
Group and approve, I like it.
It's already been voted on.
Yeah.
I'm gonna quickly review, new business item D here. I think we have some POs that we need to take a quick peek at as a committee.
Number 25 visitor exemption list. There was a PO by mistake. It was obtained after the purchase order for the reef. By mistake, they switched staffing down in the mayor's office, so they're still getting trained PO, they said they got a PO for the heck they wanted to ship. So we informed them that it requires a PO before the purchase, and I think they know that from now on. I'm recommending a request, or actually requesting that you approve the payment for item A and B.
Those beautiful Christmas decorations.
Is item A and B?
They are
The Greeks that we see here.
And then one,
They are beautiful.
B, we weren't.
They're not taxpayer dollars, they're donations.
Yeah, he raised donations to Mayor Higgins.
I make a motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you. One last topic here.
Motion to adjourn.